We're handed a cultural script insisting that the ideal person relishes company, flourishes in steady social exchange, and draws vitality from crowds' conversation and unending interaction. If hosting others doesn't delight you, if you genuinely prefer your own presence to the bustle of guests, you're told this signals a defect, that something in you is broken and requires repair. Yet, here's the striking irony. Those who feel the most uneasy about having visitors often grasp something deep about how human energy works, about how the self is structured, and about the sanctity of personal space. Such people are not fleeing life. They are safeguarding what is valuable. They are upholding a truth the constantly social, perpetually reachable, always-on cohort has largely forgotten some spaces, and some inner resources must be protected rather than perpetually exposed. Do you feel pressured to be always on, or do you guard your inner resources? Comment 1 if you've ever chosen solitude over hosting to protect your energy. Comment 2 if you usually say yes to visits, even when you're drained. A home is far more than a container of walls and a sheltering roof. It is more than storage for furniture or a site for nightly rest. In a meaningful sense, your home is an extension of you, a concrete, visible expression of your inner life. Each room, each corner, and every pocket of quiet mirrors a facet of your psyche and carries traces of your history, needs, and moods. Thus, when another person steps inside, they are not merely passing through a doorway. They are crossing a threshold into the intimate territory of your very self, entering the landscape that embodies your inner world. Consider what happens at day's end. After hours of wearing a social face and rotating through roles, employee, friend, dependable adult, you cross your doorstep and enact a quiet return. You come back to yourself, removing the mask and releasing the vigilance that public life requires. At last, you can breathe fully. Home is the setting where performance recedes and simple being becomes possible, where you can inhabit your own rhythms without the scripts that govern you in the outside world. But the spell can break with a doorbell. In an instant, the mask must be lifted again. The social self reactivates the part of you trained to exchange pleasantries, smooth conversations, and the rituals of gracious hosting. Even within your sanctuary, you're pushed back onto the stage of performance. It is hardly surprising, then, that a part of you resists, that something instinctively recoils at the demand to return to that role, precisely where you hoped to rest from it. Let's probe further. Your unease with visitors is not only a matter of conserving energy or guarding your peace, important as those reasons are. There is a more basic element at stake, the fundamental way your system is wired, the deep-level configuration of your temperament that shapes how you relate to stimulation, space, and contact. Broadly speaking, people engage the world through two primary energetic patterns. For some, vitality is drawn from the outside. Contact, novelty, and others' presence act as chargers. Place them in a lively room, and they illuminate with enthusiasm, almost sparkling in response to social current. Their fuel arrives from external stimuli. The bustle beyond the self replenishes their reserves and leaves them feeling full. Others, perhaps including you, operate in a nearly inverse fashion. Their energy is generated internally. Solitude, quiet, and freedom from outside demands restore them. Rather than topping up their tank, the outer world often siphons it, leaving them depleted. For such people, home is not merely comfortable. It is the essential refilling station, the private well to which they return to restore balance and strength. Seen through this lens, everything looks different. Declining visitors does not make you obstinate, and favoring an empty house over a crowded one does not render you antisocial. You are respecting the design of your own instrument, acknowledging how you are tuned. Just as a violin offers no apology for sounding unlike a drum, and a river does not apologize for moving downhill, you owe no apology for requiring solitude, in the same way that others genuinely require company. Here's where the matter becomes especially revealing. Your reluctance to host visitors may be communicating something crucial about the current condition of your inner life. Each of us carries what might be called a shadow, the neglected portions of the self we have not fully examined, emotions we pressed down, fears we hid, and traits we learned to conceal because they seemed unacceptable in our environments. When someone steps into your home, particularly if you are highly sensitive and attentive, your hesitation is not simple discourtesy. It is the mind's way of preserving coherence. At a tacit level, your unconscious recognizes that some elements are not yet ready to be stirred. You are still mapping and organizing your interior terrain, and the presence of another person can disrupt that delicate process, rendering deep self-work temporarily unworkable. Consider an analogy. Picture yourself assembling a fragile, intricate puzzle. All the pieces are laid out. The emerging pattern is becoming legible, and meaningful connections are finally forming. Then, a well-meaning person brushes past and jostles the table. Pieces scatter, the fragile order collapses, and the labor must begin anew. This is how unplanned visits can feel when you are engaged in the painstaking labor of self-understanding. One bump can disperse the arrangement and force you back to the beginning. There is also a rarely discussed layer, the symbolic dimension. A house is not merely material shelter. It functions as a living emblem of the soul. In dreams, to move through rooms is often to move through the self. The persona we adopt among others, the social face, is not exactly a lie. Yet, it is incomplete, a pragmatic adaptation to communal life. Public spaces like the living room represent how we curate ourselves for the world, whereas the bedroom signifies intimacy, rawness, and tender vulnerability. Thus, when someone crosses your threshold, they enter consecrated ground, the figurative temple of your being. For anyone who regards inner life with seriousness, who is actively learning the contours of the psyche, unexpected entry can register less as hospitality and more as intrusion upon the sacred. This can feel true even when visitors come with good intentions, even when they are people you genuinely love. The labor of becoming oneself, the genuine transformative work, unfolds in conditions of privacy. It requires silence, unhurried solitude, and time with your own thoughts, emotions, inquiries, and anxieties. It proceeds most fruitfully when there is no audience to impress, no external standard to satisfy, and no surrounding expectations pulling you away from your authentic pace. This leads to a pivotal recognition. The persona we use in company, the practiced social face, is not fraudulent, yet it does not encompass the total truth of who we are. It remains a situational necessity. And who decreed that an ideal human must be endlessly reachable, perpetually open, and perpetually ready to host? In reality, people are built for distinct forms of work. Some are oriented toward depth rather than breadth. When the mask stays on for too long, especially within our own homes, we begin to drift from the underlying self. Each time you accept a visit, you do not want each time you engage in cheerful conversation when your real desire is quiet, each time you perform friendliness, while your inner life pleads for solitude, you step away from yourself. In doing so, You trade social ease for the unvarnished truth of your needs. Here is the common snare after years of compliance. You may feel guilty simply for desiring time alone. You may suspect a flaw in yourself, believing you ought to relish gatherings to be more hospitable, warm, and relentlessly social. Yet who authored that standard? Who established that availability without limits equals virtue? The truth is that human designs vary. Certain people are called to depth rather than expanse. Some are meant to cultivate a handful of profound bonds instead of numerous surface connections. Others need extended intervals of aloneness, not out of disdain for people, but because solitude is the environment in which their most consequential work actually occurs. Myths across cultures preserve an enduring archetype, the hermit or sage who withdraws from the crowd and discovers insight in aloneness. This figure is not a social failure, nor someone incapable of functioning among others. Rather, the retreat serves a purpose, a disciplined orientation toward learning that requires distance and quiet to ripen understanding. We inhabit an era saturated with stimulation, in which near constant connectivity keeps people perpetually reachable and perpetually reactive to others' needs. Calls arrive, messages accumulate, and obligations expand without end. The impulse in you that resists visitors is not obstinacy. It is the echo of something older, a pull toward the inward path. It heeds a time-worn summons that says, "Be still, be quiet, be alone." Because only in that stillness can you hear what your own soul is trying to tell you. To be clear, this is not an argument for total seclusion. It does not advise cutting ties or retreating into a cave. Balance remains essential. Connection holds genuine beauty. Relationships carry real weight. The point is simpler and more honest. Your requirement for solitude is not a malfunction to repair. Your reluctance to entertain guests is not a defect of character. Your instinct to guard your space is not self-centeredness. It is a legitimate expression of care for the conditions under which you truly thrive. This is wisdom. We exist in an era overwhelmed by relentless stimulation. People are perpetually reachable, constantly plugged in, and continuously reacting to others' needs. Phones buzz, messages accumulate, responsibilities increase, and yet many are left feeling drained, unfocused, and disoriented. People have lost the ability to be in solitude. They've overlooked that the soul craves quiet just as much as the body requires rest. That urge to avoid visitors, to close the door, to choose solitude over socializing, isn't a denial of life. It's a celebration of it. You're affirming the value of your inner life, your tranquility, your energy. You're choosing not to give yourself away to meet societal pressures. This takes courage, because society may insist you're mistaken. Your relatives might label you as difficult, and friends might see you as antisocial. Yet in your most honest moments, you recognize the truth. You feel most authentic when you're alone, more so than when you're with others. You understand that silence is comforting, like returning home, and that solitude isn't void, it's rich and complete. Those who tire you out by visiting, whose company feels like a performance, even at home, aren't bad people. They're just attuned to a different pace of life. They are wired differently. Their needs differ from yours, and they gain energy from things that leave you drained. And that's okay. Let them enjoy their gatherings, frequent company, and bustling lives. But you're allowed to choose another path. You are allowed to say no. You are entitled to guard your solitude as the precious thing it truly is. Here's the hidden truth. The world needs more than just outgoing, ever-accessible people. It also needs the introverts, those who reflect deeply, ponder challenging ideas, and remain undisturbed by the ongoing din of social demands. Where do you feel most like yourself amid lively company or in unrushed quiet? Comment 1. If you draw strength from solitude. Comment 2. If you feel most alive in social buzz. We need individuals who are comfortable being alone without feeling lonely, who find value in quiet, and who see fullness in emptiness. That unease around visitors reveals your authentic self. It shows that your life isn't meant to be a series of shallow social engagements. You are meant for depth. Don't label yourself antisocial, problematic, or flawed. Pay attention to what that resistance is communicating. It's a signal that your inner realm needs safeguarding and that your energy is valuable. When you respect this truth, stop resisting who you are and let go of guilt about craving solitude. Something extraordinary unfolds. You begin to live more authentically and become truly present. When you decide to connect with others, you're fully engaged, not distracted, not drained, not longing to escape. You are able to give genuinely from abundance rather than lack. Yet to replenish yourself, you require quiet room to breathe and a home that serves as a sanctuary, not a performance space. You need moments free from demands where no pretense is needed, and you can just exist as you are. So when someone asks to come by, and you feel that old resistance swell, don't condemn it. Don't label yourself antisocial, difficult, or flawed. Pay attention to what that resistance is communicating. It signals that your inner life needs guarding, that your energy is valuable, and that solitude is not selfish, but sacred. You are under no obligation to open the door whenever someone knocks. You're not required to be endlessly available, accommodating, or constantly welcoming. You're permitted to reserve your space for yourself. You have every right to say, "Not today, not now, maybe not ever." And anyone who genuinely cares about you will understand. Those who respect you will honor your boundaries. Anyone who recognizes your worth won't ask you to trade your peace for their convenience. Your home is a sanctuary. Solitude is your discipline. Silence is your teacher. And the part of you that resists visitors isn't a flaw. It's guidance leading you back to yourself. So close the door if you must. Switch off the lights. Let the phone ring. Sit in the stillness. Hear your own breath. Sense your body's weight in the chair. Observe what surfaces when there's no audience to impress, no one to appease, no needs outranking your own. This is where you meet yourself, where you become whole, where the true work takes place. And it can only unfold in solitude. The outer world will keep clamoring for your attention, demanding your presence, wanting a share of you. But your inner world, the terrain of your soul, needs protection and boundaries. It often requires saying no to the outside so you can say yes within. This isn't escape, avoidance, or fear. This is returning to the source, remembering who you are when you're not performing a role for others. This is the sacred task of becoming yourself. Has saying no to a visit ever felt like saying yes to your real self? Comment 1. If you've set a boundary that helped you feel more authentic. Comment 2 if you struggle to decline invitations, even when you need rest. And if it yields fewer visitors, less entertaining, and more solitary evenings, so be it. Because ultimately, you live with yourself far longer than with anyone else. You are simply someone who understands that your most important relationship is with yourself. And that relationship needs time, space, and quiet to deepen. Your home is not a public venue. The more at ease you are with solitude, the more genuine your connections become. The more you honor silence, the more present you are when you speak. So next time the doorbell tightens your chest and you resist a visit, don't apologize. Don't explain or justify, simply honor what you know is true. You are arriving as your true self, full, steady, and clear. That kind of presence is rare, and that kind of authenticity is priceless. So trust the part of you that declines visitors. Trust the wisdom in that resistance. Trust that your need for solitude points to something essential about who you are and what you require to thrive. You're not broken, not difficult, not mistaken. You're simply someone who knows the primary relationship of your life is with yourself, and it needs time, space, and quiet to grow. Your home isn't public, your energy isn't communal property, and your time isn't free for the taking. These belong to you, and you have every right to protect them. So when that same tightness returns at the doorbell, when someone asks to visit, don't apologize, explain, or justify. Just honor what you know is true. Sometimes the kindest act is to shut the door, turn the lock, and rest in your own company, because that's where you most belong. There you are most yourself. There you remember what matters. And what matters isn't how many guests you host, how social you seem, or how available you are. What matters is staying faithful to your nature, honoring your needs, and safeguarding the space where your soul can breathe. The lantern-bearing hermit walking alone at night isn't lost. He's finding his path. And the light he carries isn't borrowed. It's the glow of his own understanding found in solitude, tended in silence, shielded from the wind. That same light lives within you, too. Yet even that light, once discovered, is not yours alone. Alan Watts would remind us that the flame you guard in solitude is not a private possession, but a spark of the same cosmic fire that burns in all things. The quiet you defend is not isolation, it is communion of another kind. For in the stillness, where you meet yourself, you are also meeting the whole. The boundary between you and the world softens, and solitude reveals its secret: you were never separate to begin with. Watts often said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself." When you withdraw into silence, it is not withdrawal from life. It is life turning inward to contemplate itself through you. The impulse to close the door, to choose stillness over noise, is the universe taking a breath, gathering awareness, renewing its rhythm before flowing outward again. Just as waves must momentarily retreat before they rise anew, your solitude is that ebb, that gathering of force before the next expression of engagement. This is why genuine solitude never leads to loneliness. Loneliness emerges when the ego believes it stands apart from all that is. Solitude, in contrast, dissolves that illusion. In the quiet, the walls of the self grow porous. You sense the subtle pulse that connects everything: the wind outside, the hum of the refrigerator, your breathing, the stars beyond the roof. It is all movement within the same dance. What you called being alone is, in truth, participating in wholeness. To live this way is to embody what the Taoists named wu-wei, effortless harmony with the flow. You do not force connection, nor do you flee it. You allow relationships to arise naturally, as rivers meet the sea without strain or performance. You discover that your best company, whether with others or alone, emerges when you no longer try to control the rhythm of encounter. When you rest in your nature, every meeting becomes genuine, every silence alive. And so, solitude is not the end of relationship, but its purification. It teaches you to return to others without pretense, to offer presence untainted by fatigue or resentment. Having tended the flame within you, Step into the world not seeking completion, but sharing what is already whole. This is the paradox Watts loved. Only by being truly alone do we remember we have never been apart. Does solitude help you feel more connected or more distant from the world? Comment 1 if time alone deepens your sense of connection. Comment 2 if being alone tends to heighten loneliness for you.